Hi, Melissa.
Hello. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, future lawyers, to this next BarMax webinar. What we're talking about today is using essay questions to learn the law. And I am here with Melissa Alstead, I guess our currently most experienced BarMax tutor extraordinaire for both UBE and California. Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
You feeling ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready to get started.
Okay, good. Then we're going to do this, but I'm going to embarrass you first. I'm going to tell you, I said welcome lawyers at the beginning, but our future lawyers, but I know some of you are already lawyers and you face the unenviable task of taking the bar exam in another jurisdiction. And this is something both Melissa and I have done. How many bar exams did you get to take and pass, Melissa?
3.
3. Me too. But what I wanted to embarrass Melissa about is that her most recent bar exam was a state that has now thankfully become a UBE, uniform bar exam state. So she will be able to be a lawyer almost anywhere. She's already a California lawyer and Michigan lawyer. But Melissa scored in the 99th percentile on that exam. Okay, she teaches the bar exam, but Melissa, I would expect you to do well, but 99%, I feel like you're just flexing.
Yeah, I ended up taking it very seriously, and there is knowing it and then being able to test ready. And I think I pushed myself to know more than I needed to know, obviously, but it was the October exam and it made me nervous just because it was the half exam. And so it was the good and the evil because you only had 100 MBE questions, but if you didn't know them, there was a few margin of error that you could go down.
Yeah. Okay. Also, it was the first, for those of you who are now back in the regular bar exam world, right. February, we do expect all of our exams to be in person like in the old days, but that was the first time they were trying to administer this sort of exam remotely. So it was a big hold your breath kind of moment, and we are past that now, Lord willing. As I said, we'll be talking about using bar exam essays to learn the law. I've noticed some of you are already in chat, which is great. If you have comments for your fellow students, make sure that you put those to everyone. But if you're going to get in a special chat about a study group or having communications with a small group of people, please make those private so that the chat isn't too distracting and cluttered for everyone else. And if you have questions for BarMax, we also have Katie Cuff of BarMax here to answer questions, and I'll be there in chat during Melissa's part of the presentation. So we can get your questions about anything bar related right there. And also, Melissa and I will take some Q&A about studying, about essays, that sort of thing at the end of the presentation, should we have time. The good stuff. First of all, if you don't have the BarMax app yet, you do not have to be a BarMax student to enjoy this webinar, to get all the information out of it, or even to get the BarMax app with some of the content. And I think that includes video content. Our video content, our free video content like this also gets posted on the YouTube page, but why not download the free version of the BarMax app? Of course, if you decide to buy a whole BarMax program, you do need to pay for that in order for that to be unlocked, but there is free stuff in there too. So go ahead and do it. And you can be among our happy testimonials. We have some testimonials. Some people tell you their life story. And this particular gentleman was a foreign lawyer who used BarMax and BarMax alone to prepare for the bar exam and passed. And he mentions in this testimonial that there are a lot of questions, and this is true. We have every licensed MBE question, past exam question included in BarMax. And we also give you every past essay for the exam you're taking, whether that's the California exam or the UBE exam, or if you're taking a UBE sort of similar exam like Hawaii that uses all those same essays, and you buy our UBE course, you will get all those essays. So today we're going to talk about why all those essays? And I think, did I get ahead of myself? No, here it is. Why all those essays? You know that you want to use them to practice essay writing, but let's make it a quiz. Why not a multiple choice question to start us off today, right? Hey, you're going to be answering lots of multiple choice questions in the next couple of months. What is the least? Who would write a question with least in the question prompt? Isn't that evil? Yes, and the bar examiners do it, so I did too. What is the least useful way to use past essay questions? A, use them to get feedback on your exam writing format and style, starting in your first week or two of exam prep. Does that sound useful that early? Use them to learn the black letter law. Can I really learn black letter law from essays? Use them only to test yourself after you've memorized all the black letter law. This looks familiar. That's what a lot of people do. Use them for timed essay writing practice 4 to 6 weeks before the exam, which is the least useful way. And probably I would have some of you writing in chat already. I don't know. The least useful way is the one I said, a lot of people do this, which is answer choice C. How do we know this? Because it includes the word only. Oh, another exam tip on those MBE questions. If you see that extreme language, especially for con law, I talk about this in a lot of the office hours, things to look out for on MBE questions, but the extreme language usually means it's wrong. So see, I made this like an MBE question, but at BarMax, you'll get real MBE questions. That is the bad answer, which, because we're looking for the least helpful thing, is the right answer. Ding, ding, ding. This is the worst way to use the essays, is basically ignore them. Ignore them, ignore them. Focus on learning law, maybe practice MBE as questions. This isn't the best way to go about studying for your bar exam. In fact, all 3 other options are good, helpful uses for your essays that we want you taking advantage of. We don't want you to be one of those people that ignores the essays and then says, I better do some at the last minute. And people do that not because they're lazy. You are working so hard when you're studying for the bar. Most of you, right? You're working so hard at making this time happen in your schedule and, getting focused study time, and you are using your brain until steam is rising from it. Why aren't you doing essays? It's not because you're lazy. It's because we have this false notion that we need to memorize everything and write a perfect rule statement before we can do an essay. That's garbage. We'll hopefully dispel that myth today. The essays are useful from your very first weeks of exam study. So let's talk about the good ways to use essays. Okay, I said use them from your first week or 2 of exam study. How are you going to do that if you haven't memorized anything yet? Simple, you're going to cheat. It's useful to do some essays open book. To do some essays where you say, okay, I know that this is about joinder in civil procedure, but I don't know the rules for joinder. I don't know the standard for joinder. So I am going to open my BarMax outline, either in the hard copy book version. Okay. This has the outline. By the way, BarMax outlines are very streamlined. This is the outline for California. For everything, every subject on the California bar exam, you have the black letter law you need right here. And the UBE book is similar in size and appearance. So use the book to get your rule statement and then write a beautiful IRAC. don't spend all day on it, but give yourself a little extra time for looking up that rule. Write a beautiful IRAC, maybe a couple minutes over what you would get for your exam, which is 30 minutes for an MBE essay, an hour for a California essay, and get feedback. Because I'll show you within the product in a minute where you can go within our website to submit your essays. But if you buy BarMax, if you take this coupon and go buy BarMax, or if you've already bought BarMax, you have 10 essays and you will get detailed feedback from Melissa, from other graders and instructors that we have who receive these essays and give feedback. So you'll know that you're on track and that what you are aiming to write is correct from the very beginning. So A is a great way to use essay questions. And D is a great way to use essay questions, because the exam itself is sort of a horse race. On California essays, you have so many issues that you need to spit out, do a quick IRAC, in, out, just really getting all those issues, rules, application, conclusion on the paper, rule, apply, conclude on the paper. And so you want to practice that timing. And even on the MBE, where you might just have 3-4 issues for an essay, you only have 30 minutes. You need to practice doing them timed. Do that a little closer to exam day in the review phase of your study. But I skipped B, which is, of course, our major topic for today is B. Use the essays to learn the black letter law and how it applies on the exam. Now, this webinar, as I said, will be on our YouTube page, but let's take a look at some past BarMax video. I just want to show you where to find it. So I'm actually going to exit my keynote for just a second, my presentation slideshow. And then what I'm going to share instead, let me find it, is where's my darling browser? I'm going to open my browser. Yes. Hang on. I'm going to cancel this. It's not offering me the right option. Technology. Okay, here's my browser. And oh, it's looking huge. I don't want that. I want to be able to. Nope. Oh yeah, here we go. I can exit full screen and I can show you. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you log into BarMax and you have access to the UBE course. The California course looks very similar, except for instead of the UBE essay subjects down here, you will have the California subjects, your good old community property and professional responsibility and all that. Okay. On this left-hand margin, you see a whole bunch of icons. These are actually useful. Okay. This is the essay submission icon, or you will go to a portal to submit your practice essays when you're actually writing them out. And this is let's see if I can do it. Yes, the office hour and webinar icon. Now, again, in the paid version, you will see both the free webinars and the office hours that we only open up to BarMax students. And they're all here, and so many of them are useful. This one I'm going to be talking a little bit about today. Yeah, fabulous webinars. One very useful aspect of BarMax for people who either want a little more substantive help in a particular area or study strategies and advice for different parts of the exam. We've been running these webinars and office hours now since December of 2019. So there's plenty of content here. Also within BarMax, you can write to support. And if it is a content related question, like, hey, is there a video about X, or I don't understand concept Y, it will come to me and the instruction team. I'm the head of instruction and content here at BarMax. So questions that relate to content will come to me and I'll answer them. Now, I work business hours and sometimes it takes a little bit for a question to make it to me. So you might have to sit tight for a day or two, or 3 before you get an answer. But I do respond, and my team and I respond to those questions. And up here, this is the filter. It will take you, among other things, to the MBE questions, but that is not what we are talking about today. We're talking about our essay questions. Oh, what I wanted to show you, though, was that one of those past videos that I referenced is called Open Book Bar Study, and it talks about doing a particular method of bar study. And a lot of people have very successfully applied that to the MBE. Now, in that webinar, I said, hey, this is for MBE and essay questions both. And I even demoed an essay question at the end. But for some reason, most people just grabbed hold of that method and used it for MBE. Now, if you haven't done that yet, you haven't seen it yet, go do it. We had a student who wrote to us recently. As you know, bar exam results just came out. And the student said, wow, I used Open Book and my MBE score was 158. That is amazing. That's a very high score for just the MBE section of the bar exam. Unfortunately, why was the student writing to us? Because they didn't pass the essay part of the bar exam. They didn't apply the same method to learning essays. Okay, so the student is going to focus more on essays and essay writing this time, and I am very confident that that student will pass in February. But I'm going to now start sharing my keynote again, my slideshow here. And let's see if I can make it a little bigger. There we go. So I want you to know that those past office hours are useful. And in that one, I talked about the difference between passive and active study and how science shows that the more active we are, the more retention of the material we have. The sad thing is that just listening to a lecture results in a very small percentage of retention. I think it was like 8% or something. I had the stats. I said it during the webinar. I don't remember, but it's the lowest. Whereas actually practicing something by doing it is very high. Practice by doing is way over on the right. That's where you want most of your study time to be. So I showed this 4-step method, and it's not filling in the first one. Oh, for step 1, read the question. I showed this for MBE questions. I would tinker it slightly for essay questions to say that when you look up the rule, you're doing it to learn the rule, to learn it well, and to see how that rule gets tested on the exam. How does that rule get tested in essays? But guess what? Doing this will also increase your MBE score because you will know the rule better and you will know how the test writers like it, the kinds of facts that go with the elements of that rule on the bar exam, which is actually the same for essays and MBE. So you'll learn those aspects better by doing some essays open book. And I showed you that step 3 was answer the question, which when you're doing an MBE question involves a click. But obviously when you're doing an essay question, step 3, actually writing the essay, is a significant investment of time. You don't have to do that every time. If you have turned in essays early on in your process and are pretty sure you've got the essay writing format down, you can in fact use many of your essays just to learn the law, in which case you're skipping step 3 and you're going to check step 4, check your work. Now, I just walked you through this, but I want to demonstrate it. And Melissa is going to demonstrate Melissa's back. Yay. Melissa's going to demonstrate with a California bar exam essay, and I'm going to demonstrate with a multi-state bar exam essay. The multi-state or bar exam, the MPRE essays, are used in all 38 UBE jurisdictions. Plus, it's half the essays in Mississippi and some of the essays in Wisconsin and all but one of the essays in South Dakota. Oh, and all of the essays in Hawaii. So basically, there's 42 jurisdictions that are using MPRE essays. So if you're taking one of those exams, the question that I'm going to show is from your exam. If you're taking California, Melissa's question will help you. Now, if you're taking Florida or Georgia or Virginia, Nevada, one of the other states that isn't on this list, this method is still helpful. Now, you might have a 45-minute essay instead of a 60 or 30-minute essay, but the method of learning the law is still the same. You will use your state's past essay questions, which is on your state bar website, in order to study for that portion of your exam. If you are not in BarMax California or BarMax UBE, where you just have all of the essays nicely packaged for you, as we have done. So with no further ado, as they say, the method that I've just described will be demonstrated by the one and only Melissa.
Thanks, Celeste. Okay, I am going to share my screen. Give me 1 second to find that icon. Here we go. Okay, we're going to see me. I'm going to move that over here. So what you're looking at is my BarMax, and I have it set to California. So essentially what you saw when Celeste demoed it, it's very similar. It's got the same icons, and you have all the MBE topics, and then you kind of scroll down and you see all the California topics. Okay. We're going to get to the outline and the outline in a minute. Let's look at our question. Our question is February 2019, question 3. I have it out here on my Google Doc so I can annotate it as we go through it. So it's question 3. The first thing in what Celeste's method of active studying talked about was look at the call of the question. So let's scroll down and look at what the question is going to ask us. And here it says, what arguments may Lois reasonably raise in support of her lawsuit? What counterclaims and defenses may Tammy reasonably assert? And what is the likely outcome discussed? So reading that alone doesn't really help us in identifying what law we're in or really what issues we're going to talk about. So now we need to go into the facts and determine what issues we find. So let's take a look. I like, especially in California, they give you different paragraphs. It's not one long paragraph. They separate them for a reason. So it's good to look at each paragraph and take out what you can. What issues do you see in each paragraph? That way, chronologically, because when you have an open-ended question like we have here, it makes sense to then walk through the grader in the analysis chronologically as well. It will be what they're expecting and the easiest to organize quickly because you are on a 60-minute time crunch. So let's take a look at our first paragraph. Lois rented a furnished apartment in her building to Tammy, a medical student, for 9 months, beginning June 1st. Tammy prepaid the first month's rent. When Tammy arrived at the apartment on June 1st, Ralph, the prior tenant, was still there despite the fact Ralph's rental term had ended on May 15th. Tammy complained to Lois, and Lois was able to evict Ralph by June 15th. Tammy took possession of the apartment on June 16th. So based on this paragraph, I have identified that this is a real property question, and we are in the landlord-tenant subtopic because we have a lease, we have a landlord, and we have a tenant. So then we can start to think about what laws, what rules do we know about landlord-tenant? just to start thinking about what issues we may see. And if you're just starting to study real property, that's okay. You may not know any issues. That's what this question is going to teach us. What's happening here? So looking at the facts, we have a 9-month lease that's supposed to start on June 1st. When Tammy tried to take possession of it on June 1st, when her lease started, Ralph was there, and Ralph refuses to leave. So here's the issue. And then she complains to Tammy, and then Tammy complained to Lois, and then Lois evicted Ralph, and she takes possession 16 days later. So here's our issue. Let me highlight this so we can write ours. What's our issue? Our issue is Tammy did not obtain possession of the apartment on the start date. Right? So that's our issue. How do we know if that's even something that we should do it? What's the rule? We don't know. So now let's go to our outline and see. So here's our outline. I'm going to scroll down to real property. I'm going to click on it. There we go. And you can see that real property is broken down into subtopics, and each subtopic has a lecture, some flashcards for you to practice your memory of the black letter law, and multiple choice questions that relate to each section. So we have ownership. That's not what we're looking for. Natural rights. That's not what we're looking for. Landlord tenant. That's what we're looking for. So we're going to click on the lecture. The lecture is going to pop up, and I'm going to pause the actual lecture, which you can do here at the bottom, and you have this online outline. This is what we're going to use to look up our rules. So the idea, what's our issue, is that Tammy didn't get possession when she should have. Does she? What's the issue there? So let's take a look. Here we have leaseholds. This is defining the different types of tenancies that could occur. That's not really what we're looking for. So we're going to continue to scroll down. Tenants duties. Well, we're really looking for what Lois's duty is, because she's the landlord, and Tammy didn't do anything wrong when she came and didn't get possession. So let's scroll a little bit farther down into landlord's duties. Oh, here we go. Duty to deliver possession. That sounds like what we're looking at, right? So looking at the rule, you can see the majority view is that the majority of states require that the landlord put the tenant in actual physical possession of at the beginning of the lease. This requires the landlord to evict any holdover tenants prior to the start of a new lease. So here's our rule. I can't copy and paste it because it's the outline, but let's summarize it over here on our Google Doc. So issue and our rule is the majority view. Landlord has a duty to deliver possession at the beginning of the lease. Okay, so here's our issue and here's our rule. Now, while you're doing this open book, the next step is, once you have the rule, is to do an analysis, right, of the issue. So looking back at our question, we're really looking at Lois is suing Tammy for, I think, rent, past due and prospective rent. So here, she already prepaid the first month's rent. So Lois is not going to be able to collect rent until Tammy actually obtained actual possession on June 16th. So that's when her lease really starts, even though the lease signed said it was beginning June 1st because Lois had to evict Ralph. So doing that, looking at the facts, you really want to hone in on what triggers the rule. What facts trigger your rule? And that's where we have a holdover tenant who the landlord was supposed to evict, but didn't timely. So that's your issue that you want to talk about here in paragraph 1. Okay, let's move on to paragraph 2. The apartment above Tammy's was occupied by Coco, a member of the up-and-coming band, The Gyration. The band's daily rehearsals interfered with Tammy's studies so much that she complained repeatedly to Lois about the continuing noise. On July 15th, the Gyrations were arrested at Coco's apartment for disturbing the peace. After that, Tammy was spared the noise from rehearsals. Okay, so we have a band that's making noise and she's complaining. Let's take a look at our outline and see if we can't find something that Lois actually violated, or an issue, a rule that we can apply to our facts here. The first, so we've already dealt with our duty to deliver possession. The second thing is implied covenant of quiet enjoyment. So let's take a look at that. We talk about it applies to both commercial and residential leases. So it's applicable here because Tammy's lease is for a residential apartment. Was she wrongfully evicted? No. So that's not applicable. Was there a constructive eviction? Well, maybe. You take a look at it and you say, to make a claim for a constructive eviction, there must be a substantial interference caused by the landlord. And underneath, we have the elements that you would use for evaluating a constructive eviction issue. Substantive interference, notice to the landlord, and the tenant must vacate within a reasonable time. Well, that might be something we want to discuss. Was she constructively evicted? Now, she didn't leave, and they were arrested and never came back. So it doesn't seem like there is a constructive eviction. But here's the key with the California bar. It's not necessarily that you want to dismiss that outright. The graders and the bar examiners want to see that you recognize that this was an issue, even if it turns out not to be a valid defense, a valid action, a cause of action. They want to see your thought process. So don't do anything in your head, analysis-wise, that's not done on the paper in an IRAC form. And it's something that takes a little bit of getting used to, because lots of times we go to the heart of the matter. What's really the issue? Whereas with the bar exam, what we're really looking for and what the graders are looking for is going step by step by step and really breaking it down. So here, the issue, I'm just going to put constructive eviction. Substantial interference, notice to landlord, vacate property. And doing just a really simple analysis, we can say, well, was she substantially interfered with? Well, that's actually maybe arguable, because there were daily rehearsals interfering with her studies that she complained to Lois a lot, repeatedly. And notice to the landlord, there was notice to Lois. However, she didn't vacate the property. Therefore, probably not. But you would want to go through that step by step to tell the examiners that you understood and you're able to apply the law, even if it's not something that is actually going to be applicable. Okay, so that's constructive eviction. Let's keep going. The other implied warranty is the implied warranty of habitability. If you see in here bold, it says it applies only to residential leases. So you just want to be careful that you don't apply this to commercial leases. But of course, in our example, in our question, we have a residential lease, so we know that this might be an issue. And this is where a tenant's duty to pay rent was considered independent at common law. Now it's called, we have these implied warranty of habitabilities that come from housing laws and codes. And if the landlord provides a premise that is uninhabitable, the tenant's duty to pay rent may be excused. So what does uninhabitable mean? So down below it says, the premises must be fit for basic human habitation. And like I said, it comes from either local housing standards or the courts. So there's another issue that you might want to discuss here. So I'm going to have another issue, implied warranty of habitability. And that's going to be premises unfit for human habitation. Here, not really, her apartment's not unfit for human habitation, even though there is issues with the noise and affecting her studying, it doesn't rise to that level. We may see that later in the question, but this is not the fact. And so the idea is, why did they put this in here? They put it in here so you could raise the issue, but then say this doesn't rise to that level. Mostly because we'll have other ideas coming up in the next paragraphs that may be much more closer to rising to that level and seeing the spectrum of those. And this will also help you on the MBE questions to see what would rise to that level of a violation of your implied warranty of habitability or a constructive eviction. All right, in our third paragraph, we have beginning July 16th, the shower in Tammy's apartment delivered only cold water. Tammy complained, and Lois promptly hired a plumber to fix the problem. The repair only worked for a week. Tammy was too busy with her studies to tell Lois. So thinking about what do these facts generate as an issue? Well, it generates the same issues we just talked about. Constructive eviction, maybe. Implied warranty of habitability, maybe. I want to look more depth into implied warranty of habitability for a minute, because now we're talking about having cold water and not a shower or a hot water shower. And that might rise more to the level of something that's unfit for human habitation if you can't wash properly. So let's take a look at our tenant remedies if you have a breach of the implied warranty of habitability. There's 4 different options. You can move out and terminate the lease. You can reduce the rent or withhold rent. You can repair the issue and deduct it from your rent, or you may remain in possession and sue for damages. So these 4, you can do one of them. So you can moving out and terminating the lease does end your duty to pay rent as well. Okay, let's take a look now. Tammy complained. Lois hired the plumber to fix the problem, and she did it. So it may have been unfit for a short period of time, but Lois hired a plumber, she fixed it, there's no issue there. However, the repair only worked for a week. Tammy was too busy to tell Lois. So here, implied warranty of habitability. And the problem is no notice to Lois, right? Lois has to have notice in order to fix it. It wouldn't be fair to hold a landlord liable when they wouldn't know. You have to have that notice. So that's what I see here. So again, we're talking about the same issues, but applying different facts to them. So as you structure your essay and you see repeat issues, structuring it may shift slightly so that you have your issue, your rule, and then different analysis paragraphs for the different facts that you're given. that's, I think, how I would structure this essay if I were looking at it. All right, so our last paragraph that has facts. On August 30th, Tammy's stove in her apartment stopped working. On August 31st, Tammy, disgusted with all these events, knocked on Lois's door, gave the key to Lois, and said, "This place is a zoo. I wouldn't live here if you paid me." Lois took the key and said, "Sure, okay, if that's how you feel." Tammy stopped paying rent and never returned to the apartment. So there's a couple different things going on in this paragraph. Tammy's stove stopped working on August 30th, and then she got upset and gave her keys to Lois the next day. So our first issue is Tammy's stove stopped working. So is this an implied warranty of habitability issue? Could be, right? Habitability. But we have the same problem. She did not notify Lois and give time to repair. Right? It has to be reasonable time. You can't just say, "It stopped working, now I'm leaving." You have to give that landlord a time to fix it. She didn't notify in time. So again, we're talking about the facts, but then explaining why each of the elements and her remedies are not going, will or will not remedy, give her or alleviate her duty to pay rent, right? And that's really the key question here. The second issue is Lois giving, Tammy giving Lois the keys. And we're going to go look at one more spot in our outline here. Let's see. Here we go. Up here, in tenant duties. So if a tenant leaves before their lease is up and stops paying rent, right, they may be in breach. What the issue that we're talking about is treat breach as a surrender. What's a surrender? Well, let's look and see. The landlord can treat the tenant's words or actions as surrender by operation of law. If the lease is longer than 1 year, the surrender by operation of law must be documented in writing by either the landlord or the tenant. So that's a statute of frauds kind of issue. But here, our lease is only for 9 months, so we don't have to worry about that part of the rule. So the landlord can treat the tenant's words or actions as a surrender. What does that mean? Well, the minority view says the tenant can leave the landlord can leave the premises vacant and sue for the back rent. Our majority view is down here at the bottom, that the landlord has a duty to mitigate, meaning that the landlord must take reasonable steps to mitigate by attempting to relet the premises to another tenant. Then they can sue for the difference in the deficiency of the rent, which what they're getting versus what the original tenant who left should have paid, and for back rent. So when the other issue that's here, I'm going to highlight this part right here, is was there a surrender by Tammy? And by words or conduct, well, looking just at a couple facts, we have Tammy gave the keys to Lois, right? She surrendered her keys. And also, Lois says, sure, if that's how you feel. So that almost looks like Lois is consenting to the surrender. So which means by the majority view that Lois has a duty to mitigate. So those are the major issues that we see here, and I see here in the in this question. So Lois sued Tammy for breaching her lease by leaving, and damages for past, due, and prospective rent for the 9 months. And how you're going to then structure looking at the issues is, what is Lois going to sue her for? She's going to sue her for breaches of paying rent. And then defenses Tammy may reasonably assert. Organizationally, you'll want to bring in constructive eviction, implied warranty of habitability, talk about all the different facts in the different paragraphs by separating them out. And then they also ask, what's the likely outcome? So based on your analysis, you're going to come to a conclusion. One other thing before my time is up is that I can show you, I'm going to bring this window here. This is a selected answer that the bar exam, California Bar released in to answer this question. Both answers actually did a different sort of organization. So if you see an organization that's different from yours, don't panic. But the idea is that it should be logical and it should flow and it shouldn't skip everything. But there are definitely different ways, and everyone's essay is going to be a little different because everyone is a little different and they think differently, and that's okay. Especially in the open-ended questions like this, where they want you to really organize it on your own. So here they start with the landlord's duties. So these are Lois's duties. And then they talk about covenant of quiet enjoyment, which is that constructive eviction. So they talked about gyrations. You can see gyrations. That was really the only place where they talked about that. Implied warranty of habitability, again, your rule, and the different facts that may or may not have violated that. Duties of the tenant. So these are Tammy's duties. And then they went ahead and talked about, they did a little bit different with talking about terminating the lease and then damages. I actually like this act better. It selected answer B a little bit better because it flows much more how my mind logically thinks. But as long as I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. So the idea is that while you're looking at these essays, getting back to the overall of what we're looking at, why are we doing this? And why are you pulling these rules out? The idea is that you want to see the rule and how it's applied in the actual exam. So that when you see facts like it again, because they will come up, they are similar. The bar exam is not novel. They repeat fact patterns. You will see it again in MBE questions and other essays. It won't be exactly the same, but it's the same issues. You'll know how to present it because you've seen it before and you've attached those rules to fact patterns. It sits somewhere in the different part of your mind. It's not straight memorization where, you crammed the night before for a college exam, you spit it out and you forgot it that afternoon. This is putting it in that long-term memory. I can still do it. A student will come to me and say, I don't understand this concept. Look at this essay. It's about, and I just did this the other day with someone, there was a torts question about actual cause in negligence. And I said, look at the chicken salad question. It's I believe an MBE question, but we were talking about substantial factor, and you'll get there if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're an UBE student. But that's because the rule triggers the fact pattern in my mind. And that's the kind of triggering and learning that you want to do in your study. Okay.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I love that you got into this landlord tenant law and you showed our students a couple of things. One was how they can learn the landlord tenant law, just going through paragraph by paragraph, the facts of the essay, and then finding that rule in the BarMax outline. That is exactly the method that will help people to learn the law more deeply, rather than just hearing it and have the words flow by. And the other thing I really liked about this essay was that when you went to step 4, check your work, there were 2 different takes on it. And both of them were regarded as samples by the California Bar, meaning these were among the top handful of essays among all the thousands of California takers. There was no one perfect way to do it.
Right.
Yeah, which is just terrific. Thank you so much for sharing that essay.
Oh, my pleasure.
Stick around, please. There was a really good question about studying for California essays.
Okay.
I'm going to do a little bit more before we hit up that Q&A.
Yeah.
The Q&A is starting to happen. Thank you, Melissa.
No problem. I'll be here. I'm just gonna.
No, you can do that. Sure. So I think I started my keynote again. There it is. You should be able to see it. So that was what I was just talking about, was the step 4 right here, was that checking your work. I'll show you how we do that with the MPE essays as well, what materials we have for that. It's a little different what we have, and I'll show that to you in a few minutes. I'm not doing a whole essay like Melissa is. In the interest of time, I'm doing part of an essay. I did want to point out one thing, that the essay that Melissa chose for today, and this was strategic on our part, all the rules were in one of the 7 segments of the BarMax outline. They were all in landlord tenant. Okay. There are sometimes essays like that. Okay. There's a landlord tenant essay that I put on the screen here. MBE, February 2013, question 1. That one involves a commercial lease. And in a commercial lease, the tenant bears the duty to repair, and there is no warranty of habitability. So the rules that apply are a little different in a commercial lease, but it's an entire question based on landlord tenant, similar to, the fact that that's the only topic. Lots of subtopics, but the only topic. We see that a lot in con law. There have been a couple of takings questions on the California Bar. All takings all the time. And there was one on the MPE last September. In the COVID year, there were weird dates for the bar exam, and one of them was September. And there's a released question now that's a takings MPE question. Dormant Commerce Clause is another one. It's an MPE question I love to teach from February of 2016, that it tests every possible facet of the Dormant Commerce Clause. You learn that essay well, the Dormant Commerce Clause. And California even has one that is mostly Dormant Commerce Clause. But most essays mix up several topics with from a subject. So you might have something about subject matter jurisdiction and something about whether it's a personal jurisdiction or venue, or you might have something about joinder of claims, all in the same question, several different segments of the civil procedure outline covered at once. Crimes is almost always several different segments of the outline all at once. Contracts frequently is. Sometimes it's just, here's a remedies question, or here's a statute of frauds question. MPE hasn't asked a straight up remedies question in a while, so I don't know, maybe it's ripe. They did a statute of frauds question in February. Oh my gosh, shopping carts, all statute of frauds all the time. Anyway, Melissa and I, we know the essays that we teach a lot. So that's why when she said chicken salad, I was like, oh, chicken salad. Anyway, when you get to torts, you'll meet chicken salad. But evidence is another one where they tend to jump all over. The exception would be a hearsay question, but that's because, again, there's so many rules in hearsay. You can cover 5 different things in a hearsay question, but most of the time, an evidence essay will jump all over the place. So I'm going to just show you some pieces of an MPE evidence essay. Probably we'll just do the first piece. The call of the question is, how should the court rule on each of these motions, which is a spectacularly useless call of the question if we don't read what came right before it. So here's the last part of the essay question. At the final pretrial motion hearing, driver's counsel argued that the court should grant these 4 motions in limine. A motion in limine is a motion made right on the eve of trial. Well, not necessarily the eve of, but comes from a word meaning threshold, the threshold of the trial, right before the trial. And they usually have to do with evidentiary issues, like what evidence should be allowed to be admitted at the trial, motions in limine. Anyway, so there were 4, and the first one was driver had filed a motion to exclude witnesses' opinion that driver was speeding. Now, you may already recognize what issue, what topic within evidence law is being tested by this. It tells us we're going to be going by the federal rules of evidence. How should the court rule on each of these motions? Let's look at some facts, shall we? I've put, ellipses here for parts I skipped, and I've done that throughout. So here's just the part we need for question 1. Driver was driving an automobile that struck pedestrian in the crosswalk of a busy street. Pedestrian plans to call witness to testify at trial. Witness did not see the collision occur. However, witness will testify that he saw driver's distinctive sports car as it approached the intersection in which pedestrian was hit. Witness, who has no specialized training, experience, or education, will offer the opinion that the car was speeding just prior to the collision because it was traveling noticeably faster than the cars near it, which all appeared to be traveling at the same slower rate of speed. So what is the issue? Well, the issue that comes up, and I could show you again BarMax, and we can look through the topic headings, or I can grab my book. By the way, we have 2022 books coming out soon. Minor updates to the UBE, little improvements here and there, but big changes in California. So we're very excited about that. We got books coming out soon. Anyway, but, we can flip to the evidence outline and we'll see that section 4 of the evidence outline has to do with witness testimony, opinion, evidence, and that sort of thing. And we'll realize that this, here we go, that this has the word opinion, okay? We're trying to exclude this opinion that the car was speeding. And so looking at the rules, again, we'll open BarMax. That's not the slide I wanted. And we'll see, I can't find my beautiful slide with the rules. Somehow it replaced some of my slides. Oh, that's the one on character evidence. Oh no, I was actually going to go here. I was going to go into BarMax and show you the rule on opinion testimony. So we can go ahead and do that. I thought in order to save time, I might skip it. Actually, no, I have the elements here, so I'll tell you. And it says in the outline, and now I'm having trouble finding the segment I was working on. Okay, is that if you look in the BarMax outline, you'll see that opinion evidence of a layperson, lay opinion evidence, someone who is not an expert, is generally inadmissible unless that evidence is rationally related to the witness's perception, it's helpful to the trier of fact, and it is not based on scientific or specialized knowledge. Rationally related to the witness's perception, helpful to the trier of fact, and not based on specialized knowledge. So what you'll do, again, you're just reviewing it now. If you want to write out the essay, you can, but you'll be looking at those elements and then looking back at the facts and saying, okay, traveling noticeably faster than the cars near it. That's based on the witness's perception. This is something that the witness saw with witness's own eyes. Okay, so meets one element of the things that witness is permitted to offer an opinion about. Okay, is it helpful to the trier of fact? Well, what we have is a trial where the issue is this collision due to driver speeding and being negligent, or is it due more to pedestrian being negligent by stepping out in front of a car while on her phone, as you'll see later? So it's certainly helpful to the trier of fact to know whether or not driver was speeding. Therefore, we meet the second element. The third element is not based on scientific or specialized knowledge. Did witness apply any scientific or specialized knowledge in determining that the car was speeding? And the answer is no. It says that he had, or she, it doesn't tell us their gender. So they had no specialized training, experience, or education, but they could perceive that it was traveling noticeably faster. So we see here that we meet all three elements for admission of lay opinion evidence. And in fact, if we read down a little further in the BarMax outline, there's a list of examples of types of opinion testimony that are generally admitted from lay people. An opinion about someone's general appearance, she appeared well put together, someone's emotional state, he seemed upset, someone's intoxication level. Most lay people can figure out if someone looks really drunk. And the speed of a car or, the speed of a vehicle is something that courts generally admit as, part of the perception of normal people, that they don't have to be physicists or police officers or anything else to determine that a car is going kind of fast or really slow or something like that. And here the witness is saying, I think the car was speeding, and I base that opinion on these specific perceptions that I saw. So this evidence makes it in. And again, step 4 is that we check our work. Okay. I don't know why I have these building out of order, but there we go. We check our work. And in the UBE program, NCBE, the same organization that writes the multiple choice questions, writes our essays. And they are nice enough that they don't just give us the question. They give us their explanation of the answer. Now, it's called analysis. We put it in there as a point sheet. And unfortunately, it's usually 3 pages long and pretty dense. Okay. So what I recommend is that you skip this stuff. The introduction, the summary, forget it. What you want is rules, right? Give me some rules, because that's what you want to make sure you understood. So what I like to do is jump straight to the points. And it's tiny here, but it says at the top, 0.1, 20%. All right, if I could get 20% of the points from understanding this. This is not a student answer. This is not a model student answer. This is not what an examinee's answer should look like. This quotes the federal rule of evidence verbatim by section number. You don't need any of that. You need the 3 elements I gave you earlier. And that's it, right? You don't need to know what rule it comes from or anything like that. This was created for the states to use when developing their grading rubrics. Okay, but you can use it to learn the law and to learn how they like to apply the law on the bar exam. So we read and we find, oh, what a surprise. We got this one right. And if we zoom in on the middle part, it shows us, the rule that applies and the application, the last 2 paragraphs or last 3 paragraphs on my page here. In this case, witness's testimony meets all 3 requirements. So if you were doing this on your own, you just thought through, what are the 3 elements? What facts can I match up with those elements? And now you can immediately look and check that what you came up with kind of coincides with what NCBE came up with. That is fantastically helpful. Now, some students also like to see samples from successful examinees, like the California students have. So we have started pulling those off the websites of the states that provide them and compiled them within BarMax. And so you don't have to go searching for them. We have them all within BarMax from the years 2013 to the present. We weren't able to find any older than that, but we have from the years 2013 to the present, we have sample student answers. Now, the top 2 answers in the state of New York, where 10,000 people take the exam. I don't know, these people type 200 words a minute or something. Some of them are long, more lengthy and involved than you need, but they do give you great view as to the format and the setup and a good, solid idea what your answer should have. Some of the other states that are smaller and have a smaller cohort of examinees, the top couple of answers are, I think, more realistic to look at. If we jump down and look at the rest of this question, we'll see that there's other testimony discussed here. And again, remember, we were supposed to write about all 4 sections, about all 4 motions in limine. So if you want to go and do this question on your own, it's a great example for the use of the difference between habit and character evidence. If you want me to do it, I'll come back and do it later, because I put it up on the slides and we can go through it. But the purpose of this is really just to show you, how we use these essays to learn the law. Now, don't just do that, okay? Do this during that first phase of your exam study when you are learning the law and how it applies on the exam. You could memorize every word in the outline and still fail the bar exam if you don't understand how it applies on the exam and if you can't write what they're looking for. So you need to both, work with practice questions, both essay and multiple choice, and you need to do practice writing. Okay, there's, some people are just naturally fall off the truck, beautiful writers and whatever, good for them. Most people need to practice their IRAC. They need to practice writing timed performance test, MPT, or California performance test. All of that practice, I kind of have put it here in phase 2, but there should be a mix of actually writing things out and just reviewing, and periodically turn some into the BarMax reviewers so that you can get feedback and make any adjustments, needed. Okay. I saw a student who shared, someone who came to us and said, I failed with another program. Should I use BarMax? And I looked at their essay, and this was the structure of the torts essay, which was one of the most straightforward questions on this past bar exam. Rule, conclusion. Okay. And the student had all the rules right and got, the lowest possible score on that essay because there was absolutely no application whatsoever. And it was heartbreaking because this was a student who obviously worked really hard to learn the rules, but didn't practice writing essays. It was absolutely heartbreaking. But I want to tell you good stories too, because, we all need inspiration. I'm going to tell you about a woman who failed the bar exam 6 times. Oh, that's not inspiring, Celeste. That's not inspiring at all. No. The 7th time she took the bar exam, she scored 14 points higher than she needed for her jurisdiction. How can she do this? How can she, same jurisdiction, how can she not meet the mark 6 times and then score suddenly 14 points higher than she needs to? Well, we worked together. I was her tutor. We used, and our primary method of going through the subject matter was by doing practice essays together. She had actually used another bar prep program and didn't want to pay for a new bar prep program. So she just used BarMax for tutoring. And it was a little awkward. And she met with me for a few hours in her 3 weakest areas, which were con law, secured transactions, and civil procedure. And we did lots of essays in con law, secured transactions, and civil procedure. We walked through rules. We did essays. And guess what? She failed that bar exam, but she got a 5 on the secured transactions essay. And we could see in her state, her percentages for con law and civil procedure were both above the national average. She did really well in the areas where we had studied. So she said, okay, I get it. I get it that this works. So her 7th time taking the bar exam, she got some more hours with me. And it's not just me. I'm not available as a tutor right now, but I'm overseeing people like Jennifer, who, like me, was a law professor, except for she did academic support. People like Melissa, people like Whitney, who is very patient, calm at explaining things. People like Keith, who was a former bar grader. So this will work with any tutor, and it will even work if you do it on your own. If you're not having too much trouble doing it on your own, go ahead, right? Go ahead and do it on your own. That's okay. Use this method, because when we finally went through the other subjects, looking at essays together, practicing with essays, that's when she scored 14 points higher than she needed to in order to pass her state's bar. So don't wait till your 7th try. Do it now. Do it now. This time, do essays. I told her she was going to be my poster child. I asked her what she was doing these days. She said, oh, she's doing mediation. She loves it, blah, blah, blah. She's, helping people in court with these small matters all the time in mediation, and she's enjoying that. But she said, yeah, I can be your poster child. That's fine. Terrific student. I'm going to ask Melissa to come back, though, so that we can start handling the Q&A. First of all, there's a great question that's the last question. So it's easy. So I'm going to handle it first. Where in the app are the essays with sample answers? I'm going to show you right now what you do to get all of that good stuff. First, I have to stop sharing. Okay, I did that. Then I have to share my beautiful browser. Don't tell me. Did I close my browser? No. Okay, here we go. I'm going to answer that one, but then I want you to answer some of the other ones here. Here we go. Chrome. All right, you guys can see my beautiful browser, right? So people have noticed that when you go here, there are some essay questions in the filter. There's the whole page of MBE questions. There are some essay questions. That's just questions. It's not nearly as useful as what Melissa and I did today. What you do in the current iteration of BarMax is you go to your profile. This is my smiling face, but yours will just be the generic head and circle unless you've, attached a profile to it. And you go down here to download welcome packet. The first thing you should do when you join BarMax is download that welcome packet, okay? Because it has a suggested study calendar. It's very flexible. You have more days. If you're starting, say, this week, you have more days. So take those same assignments, spread them out over more days, adjust it to what you need. But there is a calendar. Okay. It starts in December, but focus on the assignments. Do the assignments in there. Download the welcome packet. And you'll have, in addition to that calendar, all of the essays, okay, that you need for your exam. One other thing, essay submission deadline is January 27th is the timely submission deadline. We tend to get a big dump of essays toward the end of that time when people who chose the wrong answer on that multiple choice question, okay, when they dump all of their last minute essays on us. And so because those take such a long time to grade, when people say, oh, I'm going to submit 5 essays that all have the same basic fundamental flaw today because I didn't bother to get feedback earlier, and we grade those, it can take a long time. So we have to make the deadline pretty early, January 27th. If we get those done and we can open another window, we're only going to let you submit 1 essay during that window. So and that's an if, so please get your essays in by January 27th. Download your welcome packet. That's where you go. So I answered that one, but Melissa,
yes,
the first question here has been very patiently waiting.
No, I'm happy to answer that. So to organize the California essay, let me read it for everyone. How to organize the California essay materials. I feel the BarMax course is lacking a real organization or material for essays. So I think what you're asking is how to go about studying for your essay topics, because it is a lot harder, because there definitely is a lot more material and a lot more things to apply when you're studying MBE topics. You know, they're universal, right? Everyone takes it, and there's just a lot more volume. For studying California essays, you know, listen to the lectures if you like lectures. If you're an auditory person, I like seeing, so I will follow along if I'm listening to a lecture with the outline. You should look at the outline. That's where your rules are. But studying is really doing this method that we outlined today, is looking at the essays. We give you more California essays than you could possibly want to look at for each subject, honestly. And you want to start going through them, identifying what are the heavily tested issues. I'm going to use professional responsibility as an example because it's always there. And lately, it's been an entire question. In, maybe 10 years ago, it was tacked on to another subject. Now it's a big deal in California. And so the idea is that you want to see as many as you can. What are the highly tested issues? Off the top of my head, I can tell you conflicts of interest, almost always there in some capacity. So you should have a great rule statement that you can just you can spout out, type. Most of you are typers right there. That's your rule. It doesn't change. Then in the application is where you apply those facts, and you'll see a wide range of different facts about lawyers doing things they shouldn't with conflicts of law. And doing that will help you learn, just like doing the active studying with the MBE questions with the multiple choice. That's how you learn. That's how you're really going to practice and be active in the California essays. I do caution you, and I always caution everyone, the California rules of professional conduct significantly changed in November 2018. So when you're looking at sample answers from, it would have been July 2018 and earlier, some rules are wrong. So be very careful that you cross-reference it. You can look and make sure the issues will be the same, but the rules may be different. So, and even in February 19 going forward, some of the selected answers, when I go over them with students, they still have the wrong rule, and they are the selected answers. So it almost seems like, oh, what are we, that was the best. Oh my gosh, what did people say? So just be careful with that in particular when you're going through it.
Okay. So I see some other questions here. Let's see, I answered this one. Luis asked a good question. Should we go through essays when we finish each area of study? Yes, you should do when we're doing this active study method that we described today. Do it, don't do them randomly. Do them so when you finish crimes, do some crimes essays. And you'll do more crimes essays later, but do some crimes essays now. Now, if you're doing timed practice or timed exams where you want to sit for a whole 90-minute or 3-hour chunk like you will on the test, because there will be times There's even one 3.5-hour chunk in California, right? Where you do you do 2 essays and a PT all at once, or no? I can't remember.
It's one essay, 2.5-hour PT.
No,
that's not right. Yes, you're right. It is an extra
half hour.
Yes,
it's 2 essays and a PT. So so mimic your exam, either doing 6 essays in 3 hours, or 2 essays and a PT in 3 hours, or 3 California essays in 3 hours, or 2. So when you get to that point, what I'm saying is, Luis and everyone else, at that point, go to recent exams. Use recent exams that you haven't done any practice questions from yet. Use the exams from 2018, 2019, even 2020. We have some. I think we've already posted in the welcome packet the 2021 questions. If you need them, get them from us. Because as you do the more recent ones, you're more mimicking the current flavor of the bar exam. It does change a little bit over time. Sometimes we get people submitting those very old essays, the 2001, 2003. They're of limited value. So I would say, keep most of your practice from, 2008 to the present at least, but with a big focus on the last 5 years, 10 years, something like that. I notice 2 people are having, particular customer service issues with the app or the hard copy outline. And I have asked for Katie to help you with those. So I hope that she will, because that's really specific and not something I can answer for everyone here. And so here's the thing. I recommend for California students that you wait to get your outline until December, when we're releasing the new ones. They haven't gone to print yet, but I know they will soon. We're still working on the new PR and some other new materials. So because that's going to go with a new lecture, you don't want to be using the old materials with the old book with the current new materials once that all gets uploaded, which, the program starts in December for February. You guys who are early starters, that's the trouble with getting immediate access to BarMax, is that you catch us between seasons, but we still want you to have immediate access to BarMax. So if you already have your book, you don't want another book, then just study from the screen, because a lot of people do that too when it changes, when PR changes. Anyway, if people, again, Nancy, you're another one. I'm hoping Katie can answer your question there about, when things are shipping, because I don't exactly know. For people who are students who purchased the course a while ago and want a new outline, you can do that on your profile page, the same place where the welcome packet is. Okay, so those are all just kind of customer service issues. Any changes in the Ube Law we should be aware of in using older practice essays? Connie, I have one. Deadlines in civil procedure did change in 2015. So if it tells you that you have 10 days for a TRO, now it's 14. Melissa, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And there was a 60-90 shift relation back, and the period to answer is 60 days. Used to be 90. Yeah. So so there will be some of the dates that are wrong in older civil procedure questions. Are you aware of any other changes in UBE tested law?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, I know in 2020, it's very small. So I always hesitate to even talk about it, because even if it changes, it doesn't necessarily, the change is not reflected in the exam, which I know is counterintuitive, but the Supreme Court ruled, it's a criminal procedure about a unanimous verdict.
Oh, yeah, there's 2 Crim Pro things that have changed, but neither one was tested in old essays. So the current BarMax outline should say a unanimous verdict is required for criminal conviction, and the other one is 8th Amendment is now it has been extended to the states by the 14th Amendment. But guess what? There's no past released questions on either of those issues, MBE or UBE or MEE. So that was an excellent question, Connie. So Katie at testmaxprep.com is going to help out with the customer support issues. Thank you so much, Katie. That's not her normal job, but she will help make sure that your question gets to, that if she can't solve it, it gets to people who can.
Celeste, okay. Anna Maria had a question. I don't know if you scrolled.
There it is.
And I think
yes.
It's a really good question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's an important one. So I flashed a slide a minute ago, and I probably should show it again, about 3 phases of bar study. But why don't you explain it, Melissa, while I go hunting around?
Sure. So in the beginning, going back and using your outline as we quote unquote cheating, but it's not really cheating, it's learning. So it's not, cheating is not a good word to use. It's learning. You're learning the law. That's when you use the open book. But you're right. At a certain point in time, you have to make that really hard transition and close the book. It's a little different for everyone. It's definitely for me and my students, I advise that after you've gone through all the material once. So what people who start now are going to transition to being closed book earlier than people who start in the end of December, middle of December, whenever our schedule actually begins, or whenever you start to January. I think that you have to have a good basic working knowledge of everything before you close the book, because then it's counterproductive if you're starting to write essays and have no idea what the rule is. Your product is not going to be representative of what you can do.
Right, exactly. So you want to have gone through the material once and make sure that as you make your schedule, you don't say, oh gosh, there's 47 more things I want to learn about contracts, so I'm just going to stretch out contracts over 8 days, because then you'll never get to this point. You have to kind of write a schedule for yourself. And when you get to the time that you're supposed to move on to evidence, then you say, good enough. I know enough contracts for my first exposure to the material. What I really need is what I see tested in questions. If there's some contracts in here I missed or didn't understand for now, I'm coming back to it. So make sure you keep yourself on your schedule, whatever it is, so that you do get through all the material once. And then you're going to start doing your practice MPTs, your closed book practice essays. And there can be a mix. There might be a point at which you're really working on constitutional law and you do have to crack the book a couple times, right? But then you'll go, okay, I'm going to study all my First Amendment. I'm going to close the book and I'm going to do a First Amendment question. Because like I said, in con law, there are some questions that are just one thing through and through. And there are questions that are like, hello, First Amendment, So get those First Amendment questions. There might be a state action issue in there, but those are usually easier. But there's a lot of rules in First Amendment, right? So set the book aside. You can cram a little before doing your First Amendment essay, but then set the book aside and write the essay in your allotted amount of time and be proud of yourself that you did. A lot of us are perfectionists or very high achieving people. I know this because we went to law school. Okay, we went to law school. We knew people who were like, yeah, I graduated from college and now I'm going to, smoke pot and circle the world, which is, hey, do your thing. But that's not the thing that we did. For the most part, we said, oh, I'm going to be this high achieving professional. And so one of the things that comes with that is this fear of putting our words on paper because it looks like garbage, especially if we do it quickly. Guess what? You can write like a 4th grader and still pass the bar as long as you get the rule and then you apply. Especially when I have English language learners, I tell them, they know English, right? But writing in your second or third language, even if you're incredibly fluent, writing is even more difficult than it is in your first language. I know this because I studied college. I did in English and Italian. So I read literature in Italian. I wrote papers in Italian. Let me tell you, it was a different ball game when I was reading a novel in Italian versus in English. Just the amount of effort that it took, even though I was fluent speaking at that time. So when people come to the bar exam from that place, like I'm fluent in English, but writing a bar exam question, I tell them simplify, simplify, simplify. Take the element of the rule and then put the word because and put a fact from the question. And guess what? You've done application. Now move on and do it for another sentence. And if you use the word because 4 times in the same paragraph, that would not be elegant writing. You would not turn that into your boss, but you would not do an assignment for your boss in 30 minutes or 1 hour either. You would give yourself time. So the expectation on the bar exam is a much less elegant style of writing. Write like a 4th grader, but get it right. Okay. Just force yourself to spit those words onto the page. It can be very hard because we're such high achieving people. I get that. Oh gosh, really good question. Any other ones I should tackle here? Now my mouse just doesn't want to talk to me. There we go. Okay. Oh, Luis. So, hey, there are suggested essays. Are those the only ones that BarMax will correct? BarMax will provide feedback on any essay, which is one thing that makes us very different from our other programs. Your other programs will say, during the week of such and such, you can submit this one torts essay. They'll tell you what your window is and which essay you can submit during that window so that you can get feedback on your writing. You can submit any essay that we have in our program to BarMax graders to get feedback on your writing. The caveat is we really prefer not to see those older ones. Some of them, the graders don't even have access to. So don't go pull, 1 question off of the California bar site and then send it to us, please. Use more. Those of you who are here now, you're insiders, okay? You're going to do things the best way, which is you're going to use more recent essays, the past 10 years or so. But Luis, at that point, any essay from the past 10 years, any California performance test, any multi-state performance test, which follows the same format as the California performance test. If you want to turn in, if you realize your essays are great, but you want to work on PTs, then turn in 3 essays and 7 PTs, and we will grade them all as part of your program. Okay. Anything you need to turn in. So the suggested essays are just there to kind of give you an overview of the material to start, but those should not be the only essays you review. Those are maybe some starter ones, but then, start tackling those more recent essays in the areas after that. Any other thoughts? We are past an hour and a half at this point, which is fantastic. It was Luis, man, more questions. This guy's great, you guys. He's given us all of the questions that we all need to know. The outlines that are on the screen are updated regularly. They're updated even more frequently than the print books, but pretty much, the same updates. So they are updated regularly. There are some updates that are coming out with the 2022 books. So, I've submitted some updates and they're going to kind of all get uploaded at once. But in the UBE course, those are pretty minor changes. We added a little bit, for example, to real property. So this affects everyone. It wasn't real property. It was, there was an issue we saw tested twice that hadn't been tested before, but has been tested twice in recent years. Now I forget where it was because I did submit updates in a couple of places. We said, if they're testing this issue now, we better expand on our coverage of it in the BarMax outline, that kind of thing. So the updates that are there are not changes in the law. They're just, I'm constantly working to make BarMax better, right? That's my job when I'm not teaching. I'm making BarMax better. And so, we do update those regularly. And we answered Connie's question. Evelyn, if you want to buy a new book, this one I know, what you do is when that comes out, when you see all the new materials upload, go to your profile, the little head in circle, and there is purchase new notebook. You can do it once for this exam cycle. You can't, purchase a whole bunch of them. I don't know, sell them or whatever. And I think it's $100 or 99, something like that. So if you're a book person and want to use books, then go ahead and do that when the new materials come out. Anna Maria says, thank you. Oh, and then one more question. Anna Maria, I think you are California. I'm not sure, but is it safe to say after reading the call to question, go paragraph by paragraph, spot the issue, IRAC for each answer, and that will lead you? It's not always in order. Not always in order. What do you say to that, Melissa?
Well, chronologically is the best way to tackle it in the beginning because you have to start somewhere. However, it may not be the best once you've identified all your issues. Take today, for example, we went chronologically, but organizationally, we saw repeat issues. So it wasn't we were going to talk about the paragraph with the band. And then we were going to talk about the paragraph about the shower. And then we were going to talk about the paragraph about the stove.
Because those aren't legal issues. Yeah.
Well, right. And they all have the same legal issue. So it kind of just depends. And that's why I encourage all students that you're not, especially California, it takes a long time to write out a full question. One of the ways to study is doing this method where you're not so much doing the analysis, but you're looking at the issue, you're looking at the rule for black letter law, but you're also looking at structure. Go ahead and, sometimes it's at the end of the day because this is a little bit more of a passive type studying. Read an essay, then read the answer. See how it's structured. And because there's so many, especially in certain topics that are heavily tested, expose yourself to as many as you can and see those different issues and see how it's structured. That will help you figure out how to organize it because it really should be issue, not paragraph. But the way to find the issues is to go by paragraph by paragraph.
That's helpful. So it's not always that clear, unfortunately. Right. And sometimes there's only one broad call of the question and you have to figure out what the issues are. That happens a lot in contracts. They'll say, does the baker have any, what remedies, if any, does the baker have against the miller? What remedies, if any? Right. So you have to go through and you have to figure out, okay, did they have a contract to begin with? Now, if you're on the MBE and they had a contract to begin with, you're moving on. You're looking for where there's an issue. What are they fighting about? Oh, they're fighting about a breach. Was there substantial performance? Wait, no, this is a UBE essay. Was there perfect, or a UCC question? Was there perfect tender? Okay, I've got an issue. Was there perfect tender? And then if so, what were the damages and blah, 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 right? So you have to figure out what the issues are, and then you'll organize your essay by the issues. So unfortunately, sometimes the facts can be a little bit mixed in there, but you'll organize it by legal issue is almost always the best way to go.
Wills is also another one. We'll give you a broad question. We'll say, who takes from the decedent's testator's estate? And so you have to look at chronologically in the beginning just to see what's going on, but then figuring it out. It may be that you talk about, is there a valid will? Was it revoked? And this is the general, is there a codicil? Is that valid? Is there an intestate succession issue? Those generally are your issues if you have that type of question. But the broad question is who gets what from the decedent, and then you have to structure that. Sometimes the structure is even asset by asset because it's like what happened. It just, again, it depends. And usually there's a little chronology in there, so it's like, first of all, which one's the valid will? And then second, asset by asset, something like that. Oh gosh, those are nutty. So in terms of, people are asking about specific office hours that we have. And am I sharing a screen? I'm not, right? No. Okay. There is one on wills and trusts that is phenomenal for the
UBE people. I think it doesn't cover the California side of it, which always involves community property. And, so we left you out, but it's fantastic for that. And then in terms of MPRE contracts, someone asked me about that. If you go to the oldest videos, this was me back when my camera angle was this. Okay, this was my camera angle. I wasn't as smooth a presenter as I am now and could always use some work. So I wouldn't recommend them for, let's say, videography or direction, but I would recommend them for content. The first one is about doing MBE questions. That's actually about criminal law, and it has some MBE questions. It has some very specific pointers to criminal law. And then there's contracts, evidence. People have told me that those evidence in real property, old office hours from December of 2019 and January of 2020 are still helpful to them. And then I also did a series of big themes on the MBE, which one of them was about notice, which helps so much with real property, with contracts. It helps in a lot of places, who knows what and when. So looking for those fact patterns. There was another one about identify the claim. Identify the claim, charge, or defense at issue. And that is really important in all of them, but often it will make or break you in evidence. Identify the claim, charge, or defense at issue, because you need to know what they're arguing about in order to understand what the evidence is being introduced for, which will then trigger whether character evidence is admissible or, and so on and so on. So those videos may be helpful. They are not a substitute for active study. Okay. Those are, icing on the cake. The cake is active study. If you do not have a cake, that is doing practice questions on your own, then you are not going to pass the bar by watching someone else do it. You need to practice it yourself, or you're less likely to pass the bar. Again, there are some people for whom the bar exam's a walk in the park. Good for them. Okay, so, and I think we're done. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah, I think so. Thank
you so much. Again, Melissa tutors both, UBE and California Bar. We have great tutors on both sides, and great tutors for, different personalities, different needs. So reach out to our advisors, or reach out to me, or even William, our tutoring coordinator, who helps with scheduling, and we will help you get set up with what you need. We're here for you. As I said at the beginning, you can reach me in support at that little headset icon. And until next time, happy studying.
Bye, everybody. Good luck.